Ladies and gentlemen, they say greatness is reserved for the chosen few. That success comes to those born with it. Let me tell you the truth. They're lying. You want to be the best? You want your name in history? Then you better be ready to give your soul to this game. This is not about talent. This is about obsession. When others sleep, you work. When others doubt, you believe. When others quit, you rise. This is not motivation. This is survival. You either want it so bad that it hurts, or you don't want it at all. You think I became the best by chance? No, I outworked every room I walked into. I didn't wait for opportunities. I created them. I turned pressure into purpose, failure into fire, and pain into power. You're not here to be average. You're not here to blend in. You're here to dominate, to push yourself beyond limits no one else can see. This isn't a speech for the weak. This is for the one who wakes up hungry, sleeps angry, and trains like tomorrow doesn't exist. If you think you're grinding hard, grind harder. If you think you're sacrificing enough, cut deeper. Because until your reflection scares the old version of you, you haven't even started. You want to know the truth? I'll tell you. Everyone sees the goals, the trophies, the spotlight. They see the celebration, the applause, the cameras flashing, but they don't see the real story. They don't see the nights I trained while others slept. They don't see the morning I woke up when the world was quiet, and the first thing I heard was my own heartbeat pushing me to do more. That's discipline. That's the difference. Discipline isn't glamorous. It's not something people cheer for. It's not posted on social media. You won't get likes or applause for waking up at 5 a.m. to train while your legs still hurt from yesterday. No one claps when you say no to the party, no to the drinks, no to the easy life. But that's exactly where champions are made, when no one's watching. When the stadium is empty and it's just you and your will to be better than you were yesterday. You want to be the best, then you better learn to love the lonely grind. Every single day, it's about repetition, it's about consistency, it's about doing the same thing again and again until it's perfect. You think it's fun to do drills until your legs give out. You think it's exciting to do the same movements, the same routines for years. It's not fun. It's not exciting, but it's necessary. I trained not until I got it right, but until I couldn't get it wrong. There were days I didn't feel like it, of course. Days where my body screamed to rest. Days when the mind whispered, "You've done enough?" But I didn't listen. I shut that voice down, because discipline isn't about how you feel. It's about what you've committed to. It's a promise to yourself, and breaking that promise is not an option. Talent gives you the start, but discipline builds the legacy. It builds the mindset that doesn't settle. You think I was always the most talented? No. There were always players with more flair, more natural ability. But what they didn't have? My mindset. My fire, my discipline. Every morning I trained with purpose. I didn't go to practice just to show up. I showed up to dominate, to break limits, to push through the wall that others refused to even touch. When training was over, I stayed longer. When the day was done, I visualized every pass, every run, every shot. I lived it in my mind before I ever touched the pitch. Discipline starts in the body, but it takes over your mind. It controls what you eat, how you rest, what you think, what you allow in your world. People say, "You're obsessed." Yes, I am. I am obsessed with being the best. I am addicted to progress. I love the pain that comes from pushing further. That's what separates the good from the great, not skill, discipline. Most are afraid of routine. They want freedom. They want a comfort. But I understood early that freedom comes after discipline. That real power comes when you've done the work every single day without compromise, without excuse. You want results, but are you willing to pay the price? Are you willing to do it when no one claps for you? When no one believes in you? When the lights are off and it's just you versus you? That's where it happens. That's where champions are born. Not in the stadium, not in the media, but in the shadows. Discipline means your choices are already made. I didn't need to think about whether I would train today. That decision was made years ago. I didn't need motivation. I had standards. When you live by standards, you don't wait for feelings. You don't hope for inspiration. You act, you execute. Every single day, people ask me what the secret is. I tell them there's no secret. It's just discipline. It's showing up when others stay home. It's running one more sprint when your lungs burn. It's hitting one more shot after everyone else has left. It's waking up early, sleeping smart, eating clean, focusing on every detail that gives you even 1% of an edge. Because in the world of greatness, that 1% is everything. You want to know why you're not there yet? Look at your habits. Look at what you're doing when no one's watching. The truth, that's the mirror. You think this came easy. You think it was luck. No. It was work. It was obsession. It was discipline every single day, without fail, without pause. So when people say, he's lucky, he's gifted, I smile. Because I know what they don't, and I know the mornings I bleed in silence, the evenings I cried in pain, the moments I was broken but still kept going. That's what they'll never understand. And that's why they'll never touch what I've built. That's what they'll never understand. And that's why they'll never touch what I've built. But even after all that, I still wasn't satisfied. Because I knew this. Somewhere was waking up earlier. Someone was lifting more, running faster, training harder. I wasn't chasing trophies. I was chasing that invisible opponent, the one I imagined working while I slept. That idea alone, it pushed me, drove me mad in a good way. I refused to let anyone outwork me. That was the one rule I lived by. You might be more talented. You might be taller, quicker, more gifted. But you would never, not for 1 second, outwork me. I trained like someone was always watching, not because I wanted praise, but because I wanted to be ready for the moment. Always. I couldn't allow laziness to steal even 1 second of my progress. You think hard work is something you do once in a while? No. It's every day. Breathe. It's how you live. When others finish, you keep going. When others relax, you push harder. I've seen players with unbelievable skill wasted because they relied on talent alone. They thought it was enough to show up and shine sometimes. But greatness doesn't show up when it feels like it. Greatness shows up every day. That's why I trained twice when others trained once. That's why I studied the game when others were out partying. That's why I pushed through pain while others gave excuses. Hard work isn't glamorous. It's sweat that stings your eyes. It's blood in your boots. It's training until your legs scream and still saying, one more? You think that's madness? No? That's hunger. That's the mindset you need if you ever want to rise above average. I didn't want to just play. I wanted to dominate. I wanted opponents to fear the moment they saw my name on the team sheet. That doesn't happen by showing up. It happens by grinding like your life depends on it. You can't outsmart hard work. You can't fake it. You can't skip it. There's no shortcut. It's the one thing that separates the dreamers from the doors, the ones who talk about success and the ones who live it. And every time I felt tired, every time I thought maybe I'd done enough, I'd hear that voice in my head, someone is working right now. Someone wants it more. Will you let them have it? That voice never let me rest. It kept me sharp. It kept me angry. It kept me obsessed with growth. That's how I lived. That's how I still live. But let me tell you this, no matter how hard you work, the world will test you. You'll fall. You'll get hit. People will doubt you. They'll laugh at your dreams. They'll say you're too focused, too serious, too intense. Good. Let them talk. Use it. Every criticism, fuel. Every doubt, fire. Every setback, a new reason to rise higher. I used every insult as motivation. I didn't respond with words. I responded with action. I kept quiet and I worked. I turned pain into purpose. You see, I never wanted to prove people wrong. I wanted to prove myself right. I knew who I was. I knew what I could become. The world didn't have to believe. I believed. When they said I couldn't, I trained until I could. When they said I was finished, I came back stronger. Pressure does. It forgives you if you don't break, and I refuse to break. I refuse to let opinions decide my limits. I let my work speak. I let the results scream so loud they silenced the doubt. Every time I stepped on the field, I remember the nights I cried alone, the mornings I trained with no applause. I remember the pain, the failures, the moments no one saw. That's what fueled me. Not praise, not fame, not trophies. The pain was louder. I've been doubted, criticized, bowed, written off, and I loved every second of it. Because I turned every moment of disrespect into more drive. You must learn to love the struggle, to embrace the hate, not because it feels good, but because it sharpens you. It strengthens your focus. It builds your character. It teaches you to rise without help, to win without applause, to grow without comfort. The world gave me reasons to quit. I use them as reasons to continue. You think champions live easy lives? No, we live with fire in our chest and scars on our soul. We live for that one moment where the whole world watches and we deliver. Because we already lived that moment 1,000 times when no one was looking. We already lived that moment 1,000 times when no one was looking. And in every one of those moments, there was pain, real pain. Not just physical, but meant emotional. The kind that makes most people quit. The kind that makes you question everything. But that's where I found my strength. Right there in the middle of the suffering. You see, pain isn't something I ran from. I ran toward it. Because I knew if it hurt, it meant I was growing. If it broke me, it meant I was rebuilding stronger. I used to sit in the locker room with ice on both legs, barely able to walk after training. And all I could think was, good, that's what it takes. I welcomed it. Because pain told me I was on the right path. You think champions live in comfort? No. Champions are built in discomfort. They train with pain, they play with pain, they succeed despite pain. Every injury, every setback, every sleepless night, I didn't curse it, I thanked it. That pain became my fuel. When they pushed me down, I got up angrier. When they tried to break me, I smiled. Because I knew something they didn't. Pain is temporary, but power is forever. And I was building something powerful. I was building a mindset that couldn't be shaken. A mentality so cold that even doubt froze in front of it. You want to be the best, then pain must become your friend. Not because you enjoy it, but because you understand what it brings. Growth, gripped. You must be willing to suffer, to fail, to bleed. And you must come back stronger every single time. I never asked for an easy path. I asked for the hardest road. Because I knew that road would take me where others couldn't follow. People love the idea of success, but they don't want the part where you cry yourself to sleep after losing everything you worked for. They don't want the part where you spend hours fixing mistakes, hours on the field when your body begs for rest. But that's where greatness hides, in the ugly moments, in the brutal silence where no one's cheering you on. And sometimes it's not even others holding you back. It's the people closest to you, friends who don't understand your grind, people who say, come on, take a break. Live a little, but how do you explain to them that this is what a living looks like for you? That while they chase comfort, you're chasing greatness. I had to cut people off, not because I didn't care about them, because they didn't care about my vision. I had to distance myself from distractions. Say no to nights out, say no to things that didn't push me forward. It wasn't personal, it was purpose. You can't be great and comfortable at the same time. You can't chase greatness and hang on to average. I had to sacrifice everything that didn't align with my mission. If something slowed me down, it was gone. No emotion, no hesitation, just clarity. That's what most people won't do. They want success, but they don't want to let go of comfort. They want progress, but they still hold on to habits that pull them backwards. I didn't have time for that. Every day was a decision. Do I go all in or do I waste another hour? Another opportunity? Another step? I chose all in. Every single time. People see the highlight reels, they see the awards, but they don't see what I gave up. They don't see the birthdays I missed, the celebrations I skipped, the quiet rooms I trained in while others laughed together. That was the cost. That was the price. And I paid it willingly because I knew that every sacrifice would echo later in glory. Every no would lead to a bigger, wise, down the road. I wasn't living for the moment, I was living for the legacy. And to build a legacy, you have to let go of everything temporary. Comfort is temporary. Distraction is temporary. But greatness, that lasts forever. I trained like I had nothing. I fought like I was still proving myself. That's the energy you need. You can't reach the top holding on to things that weigh you down. You've got to strip your life down to the essentials, your dream, your work, your belief, everything else, extra. So I kept my circle small, my vision clear, my hunger sharp. I didn't just want to be better, wanted to be untouchable. And for that, I had to sacrifice like no one else was willing to. But even after letting go of the distractions, even after isolating myself in that space where only focus lived, I knew there was still one battle that had to be won every single day. The one against who I was yesterday. That's the real competition. Not the opponent across from you, not the player with more followers or the one the media is hyping. None of that matters. What matters is whether the version of you today has outgrown the one from yesterday. That's the real war. And it never ends. Every day, I ask myself, did I improve? Did I gain something? Did I move forward even just 1 inch? Because if the answer was no, then that day was wasted. And I don't waste days. Not one. You can't afford to if you want to be the best. When I trained, it wasn't just about getting stronger or faster. It was about correcting the tiniest flaw, sharpening the smallest detail. I broke down my game to the molecular level. Movement, balance, timing, decision-making. I treated every second as an opportunity to evolve. That's how I stayed ahead. Not because I was satisfied with being good, but because I was disgusted by the idea of staying the same. Complacency is the enemy. The moment you start thinking you're good enough, you're already falling behind. I never let yesterday's success make me comfortable today. After every win, I went back to work. After every goal, I studied the ones I missed. After every record, I reminded myself it's not enough. Not yet. Never enough. People thought I was obsessed, that I trained too much, thought too much, cared too much. But they didn't understand. I wasn't trying to match anyone. I was chasing something greater, something internal. A fire that didn't go out after trophies or praise. It only burned hotter. I didn't want to be better than just one player. I wanted to be better than the player I saw in the mirror yesterday. And that man, he was always my toughest opponent because he knew all my weaknesses, all my doubts, all my fears. And beating him meant I had to grow in ways others couldn't see. That's what most don't get. They train only for the match. I trained for the evolution. I studied, I refined, I obsessed over becoming 1% better each day. Because if you stack 1% every day, eventually no one can catch you. You have to live in that mindset where yesterday's best is never good enough for today. You want to grow? Then be brutal with yourself. Be honest. Where did you fall short? Where did you hesitate? Where did you hold back? Expose the flaws, then fix them. Ruthlessly. Every morning I woke up, I wasn't thinking about what I'd done. I was thinking about what I hadn't done yet. What I still needed to master. What I still needed to improve. That's the difference. Most celebrate too early. They fall in love with their progress and forget their purpose. But I never stopped hunting. I never let the fire cool. I kept my focus forward, always, because the moment you start looking back, you slow down, and I couldn't afford that. Not in a world where someone, somewhere is getting better every minute. There were days when improvement didn't even feel visible. Days where it felt like I was stuck. But I kept going anyway, because I trusted the process. Think it's always exciting? It's not. Most growth feels boring. It's repetitive. It's disciplined. But that's exactly why it works. You want to be unstoppable? Then stop measuring yourself against others. Measure yourself against your last performance, your last effort, your last failure. Outdo that, outlast that, outwork that. Because if you do that long enough, the competition becomes irrelevant. And that's the level I lived on, where it didn't matter who showed up to challenge me, because I was already past the version of myself who would have feared them. That's how you build a beast. Not by copying others, but by destroying the old you every day and rebuilding better. So I kept pushing, kept questioning, kept evolving. Because every time I looked at myself, I knew I could be sharper, I could be faster, I could be stronger. And until I reached the level, there was no celebration, just more work, more grind, more hunger, just more work, grind, more hunger. But even with all that, there's something people forget. This journey is not just physical or mental. It's spiritual. It's emotional. You have to believe so deeply in yourself that it almost looks like madness from the outside. There were days I had nothing left, no strength, no energy. Days where my body screamed for rest and my mind whispered doubt. And still, I showed up, not because I felt like it, but because my belief didn't allow anything else. There will be moments when no one claps for you, when no one sees the hours you put in, when your name isn't in the headlines, when the cameras are off and the praise is silent. That's when belief matters most. Not when you're winning, but when you're invisible. I trained in silence with the same intensity I played under lights. Because I knew what I did in the dark would one day shine in front of the world. I visualized every moment, every goal. I saw it before it happened. I lived it in my mind so clearly that when the moment finally came, it felt familiar. That's the power of belief. It builds confidence in silence and delivers results in noise. Most people want proof before they believe. I believed before I had proof. That's the edge. When I walked into the training ground, I didn't walk like someone hoping to be good. I walked like someone certain he would be great. Not out of arrogance, but out of preparation. I knew what I'd done. I knew how I'd suffered. And that suffering had brought me confidence no words ever could. That's how belief is built, not from compliments, but from consistency. I remember the times I failed, the misses, the defeats, the moments when the whole world had doubts. And in those moments, the only thing I had was belief, not just in talent, in character, in resilience, in the ability to get back up when everything inside you says, stay down. It's easy to believe when you're on top. The real test is when you're at your lowest and you still say to yourself, this isn't the end. I'm coming back. I'm not done yet. That voice, that quiet, relentless voice, it kept me alive in the hardest seasons of my life. You need that voice, that belief when no one else has your back. You'll be doubted. You'll be counted out. People will question your ability, your choices, your dream. Let them, let the noise grow, because belief doesn't need an audience. It only needs you. I didn't need a stadium full of fans to feel powerful. I didn't need journalists or experts to validate my journey. I had already validated with my work, with my mindset, with the discipline no one could take from me. That's belief. It's unshakable. It doesn't crack under pressure. It doesn't disappear when things get ugly. There were matches where the crowd booed every time I touched the ball, where the media had all written me off before the final whistle. But I smiled because I knew who I was. I knew what I'd done to earn my spot. And more than anything, I knew what was still coming. That's the mindset. You don't let circumstances define your belief. You let your belief redefine the circumstances. You walk into every challenge like it's already conquered in your mind. You speak your victory long before it arrives, not because it sounds good, but because you've done the work to back it up. People wait for the perfect moment to believe, but belief creates the perfect moment. It gives you the power to take risks, to attack the impossible, to rise after falling. Without it, you'll hesitate. With it, you'll break barriers. And belief isn't something you switch on and off. It's who you are. It's how you carry yourself, even in silence. It's the fire behind your eyes when no one understands the path you've chosen. It's the reason you say no to comfort, no to doubt, no to the easy road. When I stood at the edge of history, it wasn't pressure I felt. It was confirmation that everything I believed, everything I envisioned was now becoming real. Not because someone handed it to me, but because I earned it in the shadows. And every time they said, he's finished, I smiled, because I knew belief is louder than doubt. It's stronger than fear. It's the only voice that matters when the lights go off and the world moves on. That voice, that inner fire, that's what keeps you climbing when everyone else has stopped. That voice, that inner fire, that's what keeps you climbing when everyone else has stopped. Because the truth is, talent will get you noticed, but work is what makes you unforgettable. I've seen players with more skill. I've seen players with natural gifts, but where are they now? You know what they lacked? The hunger to keep going when their talent reached its limit. I didn't rely on talent. I crushed it with work. I trained like I had nothing even when I had everything. That's the difference. I wasn't chasing applause, I was chasing evolution. Every single day, I wanted to break past my own limits. And that kind of hunger, it comes from knowing that work beats talent when talent stops working. People love to say, he's gifted. But they forget how many nights I went without sleep, how many hours I spent on the pitch alone when everyone else went home. The pitch became my second home, the gym my sanctuary. I wasn't just training for the next game. I was preparing to outlast generations, to make sure that when people looked back, they'd say, no one worked harder. And I earned that sweat through sacrifice, through repetition that most people can't tolerate. Work is what separates the dreamers from the doers. Anybody can talk about being great, but what are you doing when nobody's watching? What are you doing when the cameras aren't there? When the crowd isn't cheering? When no one is clapping for you? That's where champions are built. In the unseen hours, in the relentless grind. I didn't count the hours I trained. I made the hours count. Every rep, every sprint, every drill. I didn't cut corners. I sharpened them. When the session ended, mine began. I stayed longer. I went harder. I didn't leave the pitch until I was better than when I arrived. That was the rule. Simple, ruthless, non-negotiable. Some people wait for motivation to train. I created my own. I thought about the days I failed, the games I lost, the critics who doubted me, the records I hadn't broken yet. That became my fuel. I didn't need someone yelling at me to push. I had my own voice inside, louder than any coach, telling me, not enough. Again. Even in victory, I trained like I'd lost. Because I knew success can make you soft if you let it. And I refused to be soft. I stayed sharp, hungry, focused. Because the moment you think you've arrived, that's the moment you start falling. I wasn't just working to win. I was working so I could never be outworked. I treated every session like it was a final, every touch like it was the last. That's the intensity you need if you want to dominate, not just play, dominate, not just win, leave a legacy. You don't get that from talent. You get that from work, from obsession, from sacrifice. People talk about dedication, but that they don't live it. I gave up things people aren't willing to give up. Nights out, vacations, comfort, all of it. I replaced pleasure with purpose. And I loved it, because while others were relaxing, I was improving. While others were sleeping, I was building something bigger than myself. It wasn't just about being ready for the match. It was about making sure I was a nightmare for whoever stood in front of me. I wanted them to feel my work in every sprint, in every duel, in every shot. I wanted them to look at me and think, he doesn't stop. Because I didn't. I never have. I never will. Hard work isn't something I did. It's who I am. It's in my blood, in my routine, in my identity. I trained my mind to love the grind. I trained my body to perform on command. And I trained my heart to keep going, even when every part of me wanted to stop. They say talent opens the door, but it's work that keeps you in the room. And I wanted to not only stay, I wanted to own the place. So I showed up early, stayed late, and did the things others weren't willing to do. Not once, twice, but every single day. That's the secret everyone's looking for. It's not in a magic diet or a perfect routine. It's in the willingness to suffer for what you want, to bleed for it, to cry for it, to grind for it until it becomes part of you, until it becomes your identity, until the work and the dream are no longer separate things. They're the same.